How's it going, everyone? We've got updates on Xbox to PlayStation with some more major titles potentially being released on a PlayStation 5. It's an exciting time if you don't have an Xbox or a PC and you do have a PlayStation. It was noted that there are at least 4 big Xbox games coming to PlayStation, with Jez Corden speculating that Indiana Jones might be releasing day 1 on PlayStation 5. I find that a little bit hard to believe because that would be something that comes together very, very quickly as far as Indiana Jones being released day 1 on PS5. I would assume that it would be a 6-month delayed release, but I'll also offer you guys this. It's one thing when a Hi-Fi Rush gets a delayed release. That's a smaller title. It's a $30 game. You know, it is what it is. Like, I don't think it matters. I think when you're drifting away from the $30 titles and then you're looking at $60, $70 games, Indiana Jones coming out, let's say, 6 months after its release on Xbox, and then it's priced on PlayStation at $70 or even $60, I think that's going to be a really, really hard sell in terms of selling a lot of copies to a ton of people. There are going to be those people that buy the game, and with a Hi-Fi Rush, that is more of a niche title. It's at a lower price point. Its audience is kind of set in stone. Indiana Jones, you would hope, is this game that resonates with a lot of people. It's of a big IP, after all. And I do think it would be a problem releasing this game 6 months down the line at $70, $60, whatever, and having the expectation that a lot of people will buy it. Now, ultimately, you release it on PlayStation, the people that want to buy it right away, and then it'll ultimately come down in price, and maybe people will check it out shortly thereafter. This is very much what Sony does with their PC releases. They price their PC releases at a premium $50 or $60. If you don't want to buy it, you don't have to. Go buy it when it is on sale. But if you're talking about getting the most out of an IP, getting the most out of a game release, it does make sense to drop a game like Indiana Jones day 1. I would also say this for a game like Hellblade 2. Day 1 is when you want to drop those games if you want those games to sell as well as possible. Delayed releases, you can make a little bit of residual revenue, but it's not gonna be to the same degree. At least I don't think so. I would hope that eventually we'll be looking at more and more of these games being released day 1. But that really comes down to how much Microsoft is still invested into the console ecosystem. If they've got one foot out the door on the console ecosystem and they see their future being entrenched in Game Pass, if they see their future being entwined with just releasing big games, that's one thing. I don't think Microsoft is going there just yet, and that's why I think they're still being incredibly selective with what games they bring to PlayStation, because at the point you're bringing games day 1, at the point it's massive IPs like a Gears of War, like a Halo that's coming in day 1, that is the point where you are very much killing the Xbox brand. And I would argue when PlayStation is looking at dropping their games on PC, I don't think it's that big of a deal of releasing your games, PlayStation that is, on PC day 1, because I really do believe PC and consoles have 2 distinct audiences. When you're talking about Xbox and PlayStation, those are 2 competing entities. It's not like PlayStation is competing with an entity called PC. I guess you could say they're competing with Steam. I don't really think that's the case. I just think the PC players are the PC players, the console players are the console players. But when you're talking about Xbox giving their competitors games, and then their competitor is literally giving them nothing, optically, it's just a really bad look. It is a really bad look if you're dropping an Indiana Jones on a PlayStation platform. Look, for the consumer, I'm all for it. I'm talking about it from Microsoft's lens, how they should be viewing this. Optically, when you're looking at an Indiana Jones and you're getting to games at that level, even considering dropping them day 1, that is something at that point you really have to be kind of checked out of the console space. How are you going to get console equity, which I would say is very, very difficult to do, if you're dropping games like Indiana Jones day 1? And I would even argue if you're dropping games like Halo and Gears delayed, it's great for the consumer. It's great for the PlayStation audience. Again, I might be sounding a little bit negative on this, but I'm talking at it from the lens of Microsoft, and they have to be a little bit selective unless they are, again, somewhat checked out of Xbox as a brand, because it's different from PlayStation and PC. I really don't think it would be that big of a deal if Spider-Man dropped on PC day 1 alongside PlayStation, because I do think those are kind of separate entities. When you're talking about PlayStation versus Xbox, those are direct competitors, and that is going to create a perception shift, if that already doesn't exist. I mean, let's be real here, of PlayStation versus Xbox. Xbox. It is going to be incredibly difficult for Xbox to regain any sort of equity into the console market. I think them fumbling in the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 era, where a lot of consumers started building their digital libraries, I do think that was a huge problem. And up until this point, has Microsoft really revamped? Have they updated? Have they gotten a lot better with their exclusive output? I would say no. I would say it's been a lot of promises and not a lot of delivery in terms of consistent game releases. Hell, for 2024, my most anticipated Xbox exclusive this year was probably going to be Avowed. Another game that has been delayed. I don't care what the reasoning is. Another game that is now pushed to 2025. Indiana Jones, to me personally, doesn't look that great. It's not really my cup of tea. I would have rather Machine Games work on something else, but when you have this period of time where you did have an opportunity to regain a little bit of equity into the console market, where PlayStation has been rather lackluster for a first-party standpoint. You look at this holiday, wow, wouldn't it have been a great time if you actually had set up a lot of big exclusives coming out? Imagine Fable was coming out, Avowed was coming out, Indiana Jones. You know, if you had 3 of those level of games coming out in a 6-month window, I think there would be a little bit of a perception shift. But right now, with just Indiana Jones, you know, Sony has a fairly weak lineup from first party coming out with just Astrobot and Concord, but you know, that's not gonna hinder them whatsoever. And that's the almost humorous thing about PlayStation. PlayStation can make all of these decisions that ultimately aren't that great. This big push into live service that looks like it will ultimately be a little bit of a net negative for them. They're not going to be punished for any decision like that in terms of losing brand equity into the console market. They're not going to lose any of that because they have very little competition. Microsoft, Xbox, they don't exist anymore as this major player in the console market in terms of being competition to PlayStation. Can that change? Yeah, it always can change, but I don't think it is, and I think Microsoft has a different vantage point. Hell, Microsoft, from their vantage point, releasing their games on PlayStation might ultimately be a far better direction for them. But it is just interesting how quickly things are changing, and if we're talking about potential day one releases, that is massive. I do assume that eventually we'll get to a point where we do get day one Xbox game releases on PlayStation, but that's also going to be at a point where I would have to think at that point Microsoft would be completely checked out of the console market. Maybe they'll release a console, but it just kind of exists as it is, and they don't have a lot of emphasis on it, because if you're dropping your games on another platform, while that platform is also dropping their own games on said platform, and they aren't offering you any of those games, well, what console are people gonna go for? Unless they just completely love Game Pass, which a lot of credit to Game Pass, it's a great service, but I just think at that point that gives Sony the freest of freest wins if they don't already have that. But let me know your thoughts down below. Didn't really talk about all the games potentially coming out, but it's probably stuff people already expect. Indiana Jones, Forza Horizon 5, Hellblade 2, those are 3 that I could see happening in the near future. And the Hellblade 2 level of games, that's the type of game you really want to have on PlayStation right out the gate, or at the very least ultimately have on PlayStation, because there's gonna be a lot of people checking it out on PlayStation. That's the type of game that I feel like the PlayStation audience would completely gravitate towards. But let me know your thoughts down below. Sound off there in the comments section. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.